Welcome into Locked On Phillies. Today, the Phillies start a series with the Toronto Blue Jays in South Philadelphia before heading on a West Coast swing. Blue Jays, a good team. How do the Phillies, who have been struggling lately, find a way to make this series their own? Well, it starts with the starting pitching and a couple of premier matchups. We'll break down the series and more on today's episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. You've heard me talk Phillies baseball for years now, a little bit on the radio and television. Of course, you know me here as your host of Locked On Phillies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure, if you have not yet, rate and review wherever you're going ahead and consuming this, whether it's YouTube or through a podcast network. Go ahead and do that. A podcast application, I should say. Only one network, the Locked On Podcast Network. But go ahead and leave a like, leave a rating. And if you don't mind, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube yet, trying to grow the channel as much as possible. You guys have been doing a great job with that. If you haven't subscribed, it's a great way to experience Locked On Phillies, being able to watch it, being able to get notifications when new episodes are posted so you know how to jump in and get your previews for series like this big 2-game set with the Toronto Blue Jays. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Of course, the Phillies take on the Toronto Blue Jays at 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight, first game of the series. You can hear every pitch of the Phillies' hometown radio broadcast on the Sirius XM app. Just go ahead and type in on the SXM app, search Phillies, and you'll go ahead and it'll pull that broadcast up. That's important because the Phillies are at 6:40 tonight. The Sixers tip off at 7:30 or shortly thereafter, depending on the TV schedule. So the second half of the Phillies game, you're going to be focused on the Sixers playoff game if you're a 4-for-4 Philadelphia sports fan. You want to have the radio broadcast on. Perfect way to do that is through the Sirius XM app. Makes it super easy for you to keep track of both big games in Philadelphia sports tonight. Now, obviously, Sixers are the top billing, but the Philadelphia Phillies have a very important series with the Toronto Blue Jays that starts tonight at Citizens Bank Park. And this is important because after this, they're going to go on a road trip to Colorado. They're going to go see the Giants. The Cubs come to town, the Diamondbacks. I mean, the schedule gets a little bit easier. The Rockies are a beatable team. The Giants are a beatable team. The Cubs are a beatable team. The Diamondbacks are a beatable team as long as you're not facing Zack Gallen. And then you go into the NL East schedule down near the end of the month on the 25th of May. And that's when you start with the Braves and then the Mets in a back-to-back series. But my point going through the schedule like that is this. The Philadelphia Phillies have a real opportunity, not in this series necessarily, because the Blue Jays are pretty darn good in the AL East, even though the Rays are running away with that division. But when you look past this series, the next couple are relatively easy. They're winnable. And you just took a game on the back end of your series with the Boston Red Sox. And Red Sox are fine this year, but you could build a little momentum. If you could sweep the Blue Jays or even split with the Blue Jays, just not get swept, that builds momentum for when you face the Rockies and the Giants and the Cubs and the Diamondbacks, these more beatable teams. You want to have momentum going into those series so that you can run through them and start to establish a little bit more of maybe not even necessarily a winning streak, but 2 out of every 3, 3 out of every 4. That's the type of role that the Phillies need to start finding themselves on because they're that talented of a team. And it starts with the Blue Jays tonight. Let's start by looking at game 1. Tonight. And again, I talked a little bit yesterday, but I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into it. On the pitching matchups in this series, they're premier. You're going to want to watch this. This is high-level baseball, especially on the mound. And it starts with tonight's matchup of Alek Manoah versus Aaron Nola. Now, Nola is 2-2 on the year with a 4.64 ERA. I guess my eyesight's going on me a little bit. A 4.64 ERA, a 1.13 WHIP, and 42 2/3 innings pitched. That's solid. It's not as good as you want Nola to be, especially in that ERA spot, but you could do worse than that. Hopefully, he'll find a way to replicate what he did in Houston, where he went 8 innings and looked great against the Houston Astros. So we'll see if Nola has one of those performances in him. Tough lineup today, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. Some of the guys hitting for the Blue Jays. We'll do that later on in today's episode. But he's facing off against Alek Manoah, who's 1 for 2 on the season, a 4.71 ERA, a 1.65 WHIP, in 36 and a third innings pitched. The number to look at for Manoah, who was darn good last year. The ERA comparable to Aaron Nola, 4.71 for Manoah, 4.64 for Nola, only 0.05 off of each other. Sorry, 0.07 off of each other. I'm not a big math guy. Not my best suit. But you look at the whip, and Manoah's averaging about a half a base runner more than Nola per inning. 1.65 for Manoah, 1.13 for Nola. To me, that says that Manoah's control has been a little bit questionable. And you look at the further stats, they've allowed the same number of hits. The big issue here so far for Manoah, he's walked 21, Nola's only walked 9. You got to be patient against him a little bit this year and make him go to work. He's given up the same number of home runs as Aaron Nola. He's given up the same number of hits. He has one less strikeout to Aaron Nola, two less strikeouts. Nola has 33, Manoah has 31. So a relatively even pitching matchup. If you're looking for the difference between these two guys' stat lines, it's the walks. So the Phillies lineup has to be patient against Manoah, who still has really good stuff. A righty, though. You love seeing righties if you're the Philadelphia Phillies because it means Bryson Stott's in for a better day. Brandon Marsh is in for a better day. You look at those options. Bryce Harper's in for a better day. Kyle Schwarber could try and continue what he started on Sunday with the 2-hit game and the home run that was a big part of extending the lead against Boston and the Phillies 6-1 win on Sunday. Off day last night, remember. So we had a day to rest up as well. I say we as the fan base because it's been a little bit of a tumultuous start for us too. But more importantly, the players had a day to go ahead and rest. So you get that all squared away, and then you get this nice little 2-game set against the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's fine news. You'll love that. Also, here's the other thing, right? With this 2-game set with the Blue Jays, you have another off day coming up on Thursday. 2 off days in 4 days. It's kind of weird scheduling considering the Phillies had barely any off days through the first month of the season, but the Phils will take it. Give them a second to air it all out, play as hard as you can these 2 games. Then you get the off day. Go ahead and travel out to the West Coast. Go ahead out to Denver to face the Colorado Rockies. So, tall ask facing a guy like Alek Manoah, but it's a situation where the schedule kind of helps you out a little bit. The pitching matchup helps you out a little bit. This is a winnable game tonight for the Philadelphia Phillies, but it's going to be a tight one, and ESPN Analytics says just that. The Phillies have a 50.6% chance to win, a 49.4% chance for the Toronto Blue Jays. So the Phillies actually look to be slightly favored in this one, but honestly, kind of one of those toss-up games. The Blue Jays are they have a little bit of a road win streak going. They're going to try and keep that moving, while the Phillies, who just came off a 6-game losing streak with their win against Boston, are going to try and build a winning streak of their own. So a lot of opportunities there. The leaders for the Blue Jays that you're going to have to keep an eye on offensively, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. leads the team with 7 home runs. That's one less than what Kyle Schwarber has right now, so not insane numbers, but solid. Matt Chapman's batting .349. He's been really, really good for them this year. He's a bit of a problem. Brandon Marsh batting .314 for the Philadelphia Phillies, currently leading the team there. But Chapman at .349 is tough. Guerrero, we know he's a really good hitter. And Bo Bichette has 22 RBIs already. Now, Alec Bohm has 25 RBIs. So you say less home runs from Guerrero than Schwarber, less RBIs for Bichette than Bohm. Yeah, the offense hasn't been struggling a little bit for the Toronto Blue Jays. And I'm looking back at this, not this last series where they hung 10 on the Pirates, 8 on the Pirates, beat them 4-0. But they just faced the Red Sox, and they were swept by the Red Sox, the team the Phillies just took one of. And they were swept in a 4-game series. So the Blue Jays offense has not been totally up to what you'd expect from the names in their lineup. They've been good. They've been really good, but they're not like transcendent. They're not going great right now. I don't think the Blue Jays are playing their best ball over the past, let's call it 2 weeks. But the problem is, and the Pirates have had a really good start to the year. So this is not just a wipe away. Oh, they played the Pirates. It looks like they played really darn good baseball against the Pirates this last series. So the Phillies are seeing a hot Blue Jays team. The Blue Jays are seeing a relatively cold Phillies team. Let's see if we can reverse fortunes a little bit there in game 1. And if they can't, well, game 2, another premier pitching matchup, and one that we're going to get into in just a second as we continue this episode of Locked On Phillies. First, though, I want to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Go ahead and check out tonight. I know I already brought it up. I'm wearing the shirt right now, my Sixers shirt. Philly Boston, Sixers, Celtics, game 5 tonight in Boston. It's going to be a tough one. If the Sixers are going to win this one, and they're getting 7.5 right now on FanDuel Sportsbook, I like them to cover. I like it to be a tight game. I don't know if they win, but I think this is going to be one of those games and the rest of the way where Joel Embiid finally breaks out. Been a lot of James Harden. I'd look at Harden's over in assists, Embiid's over in points, and the Sixers to cover the spread tonight. Maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a Sixers fan, but that's what I'm peaking at. So go ahead and check it out. You can even parlay all those together for better winnings. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on and get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's get into game 2 of this series with the Toronto Blue Jays. Both games, the same time for this series. They're both going to be 6:40. I lied to you. I just lied to the people. I apologize. Strike that from the record. Reverse it. Game's not the same time. Wednesday, a 4:05 afternoon game. Very interesting start time. You don't normally see those in Philadelphia. Normally you get the 1 o'clocks here, and the 4:05 are like your Sunday day games on the West Coast for us East Coast viewers. But no, a 4:05 game. So an afternoon baseball game with a fun pitching matchup in this one. Zack Wheeler takes on Kevin Gausman. Let's go ahead and dive into the pitching matchup here. We talked about Nola and Manoah, how they're evenly matched. Well, let's run through the numbers for Zack Wheeler and Gausman. 3-2 record for Wheeler, 2-3 for Gausman. A 4.26 ERA for Wheeler, 3.86 for Kevin Gausman. So the ERA lower there for Gausman. We know Wheeler struggled at points to start this year. The whip, 1.19 for Kevin Gausman, 1.24 for Zack Wheeler. So comparable there, even though Wheeler's slightly worse. 38-42 is the innings pitch, with Wheeler having the lesser. But Wheeler's given up less hits. Wheeler struck out 46. Gausman struck out 58. 11 walks to 7. Wheeler has more there. Here's the deciding factor in this one. When I look through the stat line and I say, what's going to be the big question about Kevin Gausman in this game? Well, another right-handed pitcher. You know the Phillies, lefties, have a lot of power for this lineup. And Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, you're looking at that as opportunities to leave the yard. Those are probably, I'd say those are your 2 best power hitters in this entire lineup. I think that's fair to say, especially with Rhys Hoskins out for the year. Well, Gausman's given up 5 home runs on the year, which isn't a lot, but Wheeler's only given up 1. So you say, can the long ball hurt the Toronto Blue Jays in game 2 of this series? I'd say absolutely. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into it. Of course, the day of that game. So we'll jump in tomorrow, and once we know the lineup and everything, especially since it's a 4 o'clock game, we'll get that all squared away. But just looking at the weather, tomorrow's looking like 74 and sunny. Tonight, 70, maybe a little bit of chance of showers, but tomorrow's it's conducive of hitting. It's a shame they're not playing Thursday, because Thursday's 81 and sunny. That's what we call hitting season here in Philadelphia. But the weather looks like it's a chance that the long ball could be in play. So if the Phillies are going to have a way to take down the Blue Jays in game 2, I look at it and say, okay, Gausman susceptible to giving up home runs, or more so than Zack Wheeler, so maybe that'll play in the Phillies' favor. Gausman does lead the Blue Jays in strikeouts so far with those 58, so he's a team leader for them. But Zack Wheeler is the team leader for the Philadelphia Phillies in everything. So I don't know. Great pitching matchups in this. It's kind of a toss-up. I look at the ESPN analytics for tomorrow's matchup, and the Phillies slight underdogs in that one, 47.5% chance to win. The Blue Jays, 52.5% chance to win. That's, this series is a coin flip. Realistically, if you looked at it, you'd say be happy with a split. And I would be happy with a split. That means you would have taken 2 of your last 3. You're going into an easy stretch. I'm good with that. A sweep at the hands of the Blue Jays is unacceptable. A split is expected. A sweep in favor of the Phillies would be great. You'd love to see that. It's a simple breakdown of the series. Very easy 2-game set. Makes it much easier than the 3 games where you're like, okay, well, they won a series, but they didn't sweep, or they got swept and it was 3 games. 2 quick games. Go ahead and take care of business. And the Philadelphia Phillies, my issue is I feel like, I don't have the stats on this. I don't know. This is a gut feeling. I feel like they struggle in short 2-game series. I don't know why. I remember like a couple of those with the Texas Rangers last year where they got smoked, and maybe the Phillies just don't play the Rangers well. But I feel like when they play these short 2-game sets, they never sweep. I don't know. Maybe this is revisionist history or something. Maybe this is just me being pessimistic because they lost 6 of their last 7. But this is a tough spot sometimes for the Phillies. Let's see how they go ahead and take care of business. If you remember, the Phillies, when they played the Blue Jays last year in Toronto in one of the 2 series, or maybe the only series they played against the Blue Jays last year, they were without JT Realmuto, without Alek Manoah, all these issues with the vaccination stuff and everything, had players unavailable, a whole bunch of stuff going on there that made it difficult to play against the Blue Jays. So we'll go ahead and see. Now, full strength Phillies team, of course, should be easier than last time. And they played the Jays well in that series, even shorthanded last year. So maybe this is one of those teams where the Phillies match up well against them. I think they match up well with these pitchers because even though you're looking at Gausman in game 2, who's a big strikeout guy, and Manoah, who does have good stuff, you're looking at 2 righties. So it plays into the Phillies' forte, I guess I would call it. They're better against right-handed pitchers. They just have better left-handed bats that don't hit lefties well. Their righties can hit righties well, and you just look better against right-handed pitchers if you're the Philadelphia Phillies and you look at that lineup, so that's good. We don't have a lineup yet for tonight's game. I'm super interested in who's leading off. If Rob Thompson decides to stick with what he changed on Sunday against the Boston Red Sox in moving Kyle Schwarber down, which resulted in a 2-hit afternoon, ending an 0 for 21 streak for Kyle Schwarber, and saw him hit a mammoth home run and watch the Phillies win? Or is he going to go back to Kyle Schwarber bat leadoff, change it back, and see if that'll work? I would hate it if Kyle Schwarber was batting leadoff tonight, but it's Rob Thompson. Who knows? His call. He's made good decisions in the past that I haven't agreed with. I'm not to the point where I've lost faith in him yet. I just think it would be silly to have Kyle Schwarber leading off rather than Bryce and Stott. I would have Stott leading off, then Turner, then Harper. I'd go through actually my ideal lineup with Harper that I went through a couple episodes ago. You can go ahead and look that up, but get that all squared away there. And go ahead and try and take a win tonight. And you can run the same lineup back out against Gausman tomorrow because Gausman? I don't know. No, I'm saying Gausman. But you have an off day on Thursday. So no worry about getting guys rest. No worries about an off day for anybody. You had one yesterday. You have one tomorrow, or have one Thursday, rather. No resting guys this series. Go ahead and play everybody and make sure you put your best foot forward to try and take 1 or 2 from the Blue Jays in this home series. You got to start winning a lot of home games because the road schedule, especially with how much travel you're going to have this year with playing every team once, it's going to be tougher. Take care of business at home and get everything all squared away versus the Blue Jays. A very good opportunity for the Philadelphia Phillies to take 2. Certainly an expectation that they'll take at least 1 in this series, despite the Blue Jays currently standing at 21-14 and the Phillies are at 16-19. That's not indicative of the talent level of this team. They can beat the Blue Jays. I firmly believe it, and I think they will split. That is my official prediction for this series, a split. I think the Phillies take game let's say. I think the Phillies take game 2. I think tonight's a loss. I think tomorrow's a win with Zack Wheeler dominating. But hopefully Aaron Nola can prove me wrong. And the starting pitching is going to be the key to this series, absolutely, because, frankly, it hasn't been good, and the Phillies need it to be good if they're going to start putting together wins. Can't ask for anything better than your 2 aces going in a 2-game set with off days on either side. That's all you can ask for. Go ahead and take care of business. Coming up, we're going to talk about a return from injury. And no, I'm not talking about Ranger Suarez, who we talked about on yesterday's episode. Now, Suarez will be coming back, or is supposed to be coming back, for the Colorado Rockies series this weekend out there in Denver. That'll be a welcome addition. No, we're going to talk about this guy that's been DHing and why a great start to his 2023 season, Bryce Harper we're talking about, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to continue. Some scary stats, but some positive things coming up as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. All right, so I went back and looked this up this morning, and I wanted to look at, because Bryce Harper right now for the Philadelphia Phillies, he's hitting well. He's playing really, really well since coming back from injury. I'm just going to go ahead and pull up his numbers right now. It's a pain to pull him up because he doesn't qualify for like league leader status or anything due to not playing enough games yet, but he's batting .368. He's slashing .368, .455, .579 since coming back. He's played 5 games. He's had 19 at-bats. Now, he's scored 6 times. So he's scoring more than a run a game, which is awesome. He only has one RBI, and it came on that solo home run that he hit in the series against Boston. So he's only got the one home run. He does have a double already, but he's not really, the power hasn't really showed up yet. You just seen the one home run. But I mean, it's only 19 at bats in. That's not bad. If he continues to hit at that pace, 368 a home run every 5 games, that'll be a darn good year from Bryce Harper, especially considering he's coming off Tommy John surgery and one of the fastest recoveries ever. Here's the problem. I went back to 2022, and when he came back from the thumb injury, when he had thumb surgery, that pitch that hit him, that Blake Snell threw when they were facing the Padres, kept him out for just about 2 months on the nose. Well, he came back the first couple games, started out hot. He ended up hitting in the final. I think he was back for 35 games at the end of last year, and he hit like 227 or something. We know down the stretch last year, Bryce Harper was not good. He had a big slump. He couldn't figure it out after taking 2 months off. Well, we had about 2 months off to start the season. So what's going to go on with Bryce Harper? Is he going to continue doing this? Is he due for that slump that he went into last year? It's something to keep an eye on. I don't know what difference it makes that this injury was at the start of the season and not later on in the season, like maybe when pitchers were more stretched out and everything and teams were playing better and had more momentum. Maybe Bryce Harper's body was too tired to recover the way he can recover normally because he had already played half a season and then got hurt and then had to go through recovery. I don't know. I'm not saying Bryce Harper is about to go through a bad slump. He could continue hitting like this because we know he's capable of that. He's a 2-time MVP. I'm just saying that he looks really good to start, and that's encouraging. But also be prepared for history telling you that there might be a little bit of a downstretch until, let's call it the All-Star break. Even if he's just an average player, not Bryce Harper, till the All-Star break, that's still better than what you thought you were getting because you thought he might not be back until the All-Star break. So you can work with that. Ideally, he keeps sitting at this level, but just wanted to go through Bryce Harper's start since we're officially a week in to his returning. He played his first game last Tuesday in LA against the Dodgers. Well, now after a week, looks pretty good, looks healthy, no complaints about the elbow or anything like that. Seems like he's good to go health-wise. Performance has been great. Just don't think that he's all the way back right now and then get disappointed when he goes through a slump because that's natural when guys are coming back from injury and still getting their timing down and everything like that. So remember what history tells you about Bryce Harper's recovery from injury, but also know that he's back ahead of schedule, so everything we're getting now is an absolute bonus. That's all for today's Locked On Phillies. I want to remind you one more time, you can go ahead and hear the hometown broadcast of the Philadelphia Phillies game with the Toronto Blue Jays tonight, 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go ahead to the SiriusXM app. Just search Phillies on the SXM app, and you can go ahead and get everything all listened to on there while the Sixers are going on. Again, Phillies, Blue Jays tonight at 6:40. SiriusXM app. Just go ahead and search Phillies on the SXM app, and you'll hear every pitch of the Philadelphia Phillies hometown broadcast. So go ahead and check that out from our friends over at Sirius. Again, that's all for today's episode. Tomorrow we'll react to tonight's game, preview tomorrow's game in a little bit more detail, and we'll have a little bit of an update on Ranger Suarez because by then we should know when he's scheduled to pitch this weekend because they'll have had a chance to. The assembled media will talk to Rob Thompson about that, I'm sure. So plenty of stuff still to come the rest of the week for Locked On Phillies as the Phillies try and pull out of a little bit of a schneid they've been on. But thank you for tuning in. Always appreciate you listening in to Locked On Phillies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. What I want you to do, please, if you haven't yet, subscribe to the YouTube. Go ahead and hit that button. You're going to see it pop up in a little bit when the video ends. It makes it so easy to consume Locked On Phillies. And it helps us out here at Locked On and myself personally as well. So I appreciate anyone who's already done that. And if you haven't, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit it. Costs you nothing. Takes no time. Helps you out. Helps me out. It's a win-win. So you do that. And in the meantime, while you're taking care of that, I will talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.